Welcome to our presentation. As you view the presentation today, we'd like you to keep two questions in the back of your head. First, do you think as a church we still should continue to grow? Via small groups, the numbers of members, or disciples in Jesus Christ? Secondly, where do you see our church in 5, 10, or even 20 years? What do you think that looks like for our children, our grandchildren, or even in some instances, our great-grandchildren? Today's presentation is coming to you from the Church Council. We need your feedback on a very important issue. About a year ago, we were having some discussions about space usage in our facility, and we came across a very progressive idea. What you're about to see is one of those ideas that came out of that conversation. Currently, right now, what you're looking at is an overview of our sanctuary. This is the current layout that we have day to day. You'll notice that the current occupancy is 105. That's based on 5 people per pew. Now, if you're with us on Sunday mornings and look around, you'll notice it's very rare that we put 5 people in a pew. It's more often than not, if the pew is considered full, 4 people. So our current occupancy drops in the sanctuary from 105 down to 84, based on 4 people per pew. What you're about to see is a change in the overall seating arrangements inside of our sanctuary. It's a very big change, but it also is one associated with multiple possibilities for our church's future. This is sanctuary seating. If you come down to the church in Fellowship Hall, you can see an example of this chair for yourself. The idea that we have and that the council is struggling with is the replacement of the pews for this kind of seating. The chair is, you'll notice, has a very thick cushion. It's much more comfortable than the pews. It also provides some lumbar support for your back. Now, these chairs would be the replacement for the pews, as I had said. The chairs are capable of being put together in a row-type form. The sanctuary thus would look very similar to what you see today, with the exception of the fact that we would have chairs linked together to make rows versus pews. This is an example of a sanctuary, obviously much larger than ours, done up with the sanctuary seating chairs. This is a second example. You'll see it's from the rear. The one thing you can't see unless you go down to Fellowship Hall to look at our chair is that unlike these chairs, we would have seat back pockets to hold the hymnals, Bibles, and cards that we currently keep in the pews. This is just another example of what another sanctuary would look like being finished with the chairs. On this slide, you'll notice that we've done the sanctuary using the sanctuary seating chairs. With these chairs, we have the ability to add an additional row to the front right, as well as 2 seats in the back left and 1 seat in the back right. That brings our occupancy up to 113. You'll notice that while we continue our discussions, we're not showing pictures of fellowship halls and the pews that are currently back there. We've found through various studies at various churches that there's a point, once you sit behind, you're not nearly as engaged with the worship service. For us, that natural divider between Fellowship Hall and the sanctuary is that point. Now in this slide you can see that we have added chairs to the sanctuary. On the left-hand side, we're able to add 1 additional chair versus our current pew structure, and thus it gives us additional seating opportunities. Also included are the 1 additional row in the front, the 2 chairs in the back left, and the 1 chair in the back right. This brings our total up to 123. If we use the 105 seats we currently have now with 5 people per pew, that's a 15% increase in occupancy in our sanctuary. If we use the 4 people per pew as we had discussed, that brings us over 40% increase in occupancy for the sanctuary. One big advantage to this kind of setup that we are currently looking at is for those that are wheelchair dependent. They would have the ability to remove a couple of the chairs and would be able to stay in their wheelchairs, yet still be able to worship with us inside the sanctuary very easily. It's quite a big advantage over our current system. Keep in mind as you look at all these pictures that the pews are bolted to the floor and we are unable to move them without a big problem. One additional idea we've had is if we were to go to the seating, it would allow the soundboard to be placed inside the sanctuary, which would give better sound quality opportunities. One of the biggest advantages we have with the sanctuary seating chairs is that we would have the ability to break them apart and use the sanctuary in a small group setting. Our church is used almost continuously as far as evenings go, as we have various groups that come in and use our facility. Currently, right now, outside of worship, we have AA, Al-Anon, the Praise Team, the Single Moms Ministry, Cub Scouts, 3 different Girl Scout troops, the youth group confirmation class, the new members class, Bible studies of various types and sizes, boutique, and various church leadership meetings to include the council, trustees, finance, staff, parish, and other planning and leadership event committees inside the church, as well as various other groups that come in and use our facility 2, 3, 4 times a year. It would allow us the opportunity to have multiple groups use our facility at the same time. Moving forward, one of the initiatives we're going to be trying in the spring is to increase our small group Bible studies. Per our last survey, when we ran that, 60% of the respondents said they were interested in participating in a small group Bible study. However, currently we only have 15% participating in at least one Bible study. We'd like to bring those numbers up, and by doing so, we're going to need increased space to allow for meeting of the various small groups. This is just an example of how we can split into multiple table settings. This is just an overview of the sanctuary where we've removed some of the rows to allow for having tables and chairs set up. Again, another example of how we could set up our small group configuration in the sanctuary if we had the chairs. This form pretty much being a circular discussion kind of idea. Now, one of the additional advantages to this kind of setting is that we would have the ability to take apart the rows in the sanctuary, and it allows us for a configuration such as you see here. Our bigger events such as Night in Bethlehem, our Festival of Hope event, our tailgate parties, so on and so forth, we get very cramped in Fellowship Hall, and this would be a way to allow us to spread into the sanctuary as needed. For in this instance, we could run, say, a gift auction inside the sanctuary and still keep the tables and chairs in Fellowship Hall for people that want to eat. By now, I'm sure you're wondering how we're going to pay for this. Well, we have grants that were set aside for us last year from our relief efforts due to the Superstorm Sandy. Those grants were not only written so that they could be used for our relief efforts ongoing at the time, but also for the rehab of our structure internally from excess use. Bear in mind, in the course of a year, we served over 250,000 meals, and also had various other supplies stacked and stored inside our facility, with lots of bodies coming in and out through the course of the year. Those grants thus will pay for not only the seating conversation we're having here, but in the very near future, a full repainting of the interior of our church, as well as a redo of all our flooring options, such as the flooring in the sanctuary, fellowship hall, the bathrooms, and the kitchen area. Now, to address one other issue that's been brought forward, we do have space upstairs. However, there are a couple caveats with that. One being there's no elevator access upstairs, and the stairs that we currently have for some members are very difficult, if not impossible, to get up. Secondly, the space up there is chopped up into small classrooms, and once you put more than 3 or 4 people in one of those spaces, it becomes almost unusable. Now, the way we're going to get your feedback is through surveys like we had a few months back. If you have not received an invitation to take a survey via your email, then go ahead and call the church office and leave your email, and we'll be happy to send one to you. Also, if you don't desire to fill it out through the email option, we will have paper copies available in Fellowship Hall for you to fill out. It's very important that each member's voice and opinion gets heard along with their comments. That way the church council, as we go forward, will have an idea of what we should do. This survey will be open through Sunday, March 23rd, and that way, on the 24th, the council will get back together for their normal council meeting and be able to discuss what has been expressed by our congregation. Once again, it's very important that each person fill out the survey so we can take the information and make a good decision in the continuation of our church together. I thank you for taking the time to look at this, and if you have any questions, feel free to contact Rich